In this tutorial, we're going to create a form page to collect enough information in order to create a new record in the orders table of the Northwind database. And here's our structure for that table. So we can take a look at the fields that we need so we know what we need to put on our form. So we see here the order ID is a auto increment field, and it's the primary key down here. So we don't need to collect that information when we create the record in the table. That field will be automatically incremented with the next value. Okay, next field is the customer ID. It's a varchar. And so we know we're going to need to get that value from the customers table. So we'll use a dynamic select list for that. Employee ID, well, it ends in ID, so we know that that's probably the auto increment. It's the primary key employee ID for the employee table. So we'll have to do a dynamic field for that. The order date is a date field. It's not null, so that means we do have to provide a value for the order date. The required date is a date field. Null values are allowed, so we could leave that field blank if we want, but we'll go ahead and throw another date field on the form so that that can be entered. The ship date, that's for when the order is actually shipped, and right now we're just placing the order, so we will allow that one to be null, so it doesn't have to be entered. Ship via is our ID field. We saw earlier when we were reporting the shippers for who's going to be shipping this order. So we'll need to do that as a dynamic link field, and we'll have to use our crosslink table to make sure that we show which shippers are available for which customers. Freight is how much it costs to ship. That would be something that would, it's going to default to 0, but that would get changed when the order is actually shipped. And then we've got a bunch of varchar fields, which would just be text fields on our form. None of them can be null, so that means we do need to collect values for them. So we'll have to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 text fields to type all that information in. Alright, and then so that I have an easy reference to these fields, I'm going to click on this print view link, and we can see we get a nice page. It's a little easier to read and understand, that shows us our field names, our data types, and then we see the links that we have, so that when we're building our form we can refer back to this. So we'll just leave this page displayed in PHPMyAdmin. So let's head over to Dreamweaver and actually start building our form. So we're going to go to Files, go up to the top level of our site, pick New File, and we'll call this one Order Form, since it's going to be a form for entering an order. We'll double click to open it, and then remember, just like before on the generic form, we're going to go to our split view, and let's put some text in to describe what our form is going to be. It's a new order form. Let's set the format to be heading 1. We'll go down after it. And then now, remember, whenever you're creating a form, the first thing you want to do is insert form. So we have our form definition on the page. We have our box for where the form goes. And then I think this time, just to make sure, let's do a couple things first. We'll use a table again to arrange our stuff. Let's see, rows. Let's flip back to the view. So we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip ship date. Ship via will be 5. We'll skip freight. So then these will be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So we're going to need 11 fields in our form. So let's go here and we'll say 11 rows in our table. 2 columns, no border, headers on the left. Okay. And then, so I don't forget this time, the very first thing I'm going to do is scroll down to the end of the table, go after the end of the table, and I'm going to insert form, and I'm going to put my submit button in. That way, as soon as my form is ready and we go to test it, we'll have the submit button. Okay, now let's do some setup on our form itself. For our ID, let's call the form order form. For our action, we can go in and we can use our form action generic to be our action page. To begin with, we're going to leave the method equal to post. Our title for our form can be order form. Alright, and looks like everything else should be fine. So we're good there. Now we're ready to go up and start adding fields to our form. So first field is going to be customer ID. Let's type in customer ID. Or we could really, since customer ID is the name of a field in the database that stores the ID for human consumption, we could just call this field customer, because what we're going to do on this side is going to be a dynamic field where we display the customer name, but it's the ID field that we'll send to the form. Alright, so for this form, it's going to be dynamic, so we need our server behaviors. I need to add a record set, and this one needs to pull from the customers table, so we're going to name it customer. We can switch back to the simple view for this one because we just want to get the data from the customers table. We don't need all of it. We just need the customer ID and the company name. We don't need to filter. We'll choose from all available customers, and let's sort it by company name. People tend to look for companies alphabetically. So let's do a test, and we see we have all the company names available and the IDs, which is the data we actually want to send to the form. Alright, so okay, we have our record set. Now let's make sure we're in the place we need to be in our table. We'll bring back the server behavior. And now we want to add a dynamic form element, and we want this to be a dynamic list menu. So this is telling us before we can use this behavior, we have to include our select tag on the form first. So let's close that. Let's go to Insert, Form, and we want to select tag. So now let's do what we did before with the labels. Let's Control X to cut, move the label pieces to go around our label. We can take out the label that was automatically created. Click on our select field, and let's do some renaming. This is going to be the field for the customer. So we change the name to customer. Let's set the form it's on. This is going to be required. We want them to pick one thing from the list. And then now, if we look down here, we see there's also a dynamic button here. So we could bring up our dynamic list menu through that button, as well as picking it through the server behaviors. So now we're not going to have any static options. Static options would be if there were particular entries you wanted to appear in the list that didn't come from the database. In this case, we want all the entries to come from the database through our customers record set. The value that we want to send to the form is going to be customer ID, but the label that we want to appear is the company name. So we want that name to appear for human consumption, but it's the ID that we want to send to the database. So we click OK for that. And just as a simple test, let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to our browser. Let's bring up our order form. And we can see we've got our one field on the form, customer. We can see all of our customers are listed. And then you can see we've got these special characters appearing. So we need to look at that form and see if there's a way we can do the HTML entities. We can go in the list and pick one of our customers. Ooh, Rattlesnake Canyon Grocery sounds like fun. And then we can submit. And we can see here our post method came through. Our field was named customer, and we did get the customer ID, RATTC. That's the value that we're going to need to send to the database.